Welcome back to the Explainer Guys. Today we're breaking down the source data on a completely mind-blowing financial concept. You know that absolute gut-wrenching feeling when you check your bank account and instead of smiling, you just want to immediately force close the app in pure horror? Yeah, we've all been there. We've all played that exhausting mental game of calculating whether buying groceries this week means eating ramen for the next 7 days. Trying to build wealth from absolute zero literally feels like you're pushing this massive, heavy boulder up a ridiculously steep hill. You're sweating, you're straining, making barely any progress, and honestly, you start to question if getting to the top is even possible. But what if I told you the top of that hill isn't nearly as far away as the data suggests you've been led to believe? When you picture building wealth, what immediately pops into your head? Maybe it's a trust fund kid who never had to worry about a single dime, or maybe you just picture having to hit this massive, super intimidating 7-figure bank balance. Most financial gurus out there love to scream from the rooftops that you absolutely need $1 million to finally feel wealthy. Or, at the absolute bare minimum, a 6-figure salary. They kind of make it seem like you have to just grind away for decades, stacking up wealth one agonizing dollar at a time until you hit some astronomical number. But check out the stark contrast between these two mindsets. On the left, you've got the $1 million myth. It's daunting, it feels totally impossible, and honestly, it's the exact reason so many people just throw their hands up and stay stuck in the same financial patterns for decades. But the truth? Wealth building doesn't actually work the way most people think. There are these specific financial thresholds that act almost like invisible barriers. Cross them, and the rules of the entire game completely change for you. You really don't need $1 million to flip the script on your finances. You just need to hit the first major milestone that actually moves the needle. And that number is $20,000. Okay, let's dive into this because this is huge. 20 grand is the exact turning point where your financial boulder finally crests the hill. Everything before this mark feels like you were pushing uphill against gravity. But everything after this point, that's when gravity finally starts working in your favor. It's the ultimate threshold that separates the people who will go on to build significant, life-changing wealth from those who will spend their entire lives trapped, living paycheck to paycheck. And the craziest part is, most people have absolutely no clue this threshold even exists. Section 1. Escaping survival mode. To really get why this number is so magical, we have to look at what's going on inside your head. The difference between having 0 and having 20 grand isn't just mathematical, it's a massive psychological shift. When you have no savings, your brain literally operates in what psychologists call survival mode. Every single financial decision is filtered through fear and scarcity. You end up taking the first terrible job offer that comes along because, you can't afford to be picky. You stay in situations you absolutely hate because leaving just feels way too risky. In survival mode, your brain can't even process the concept of growth. It is literally exactly like trying to calmly plan a tropical beach vacation while your living room is engulfed in flames. Your mental bandwidth is 100% consumed by immediate short-term threats. But here's the wild thing. Getting out of that burning house takes surprisingly little. Research from Vanguard actually shows that having just $2,000 in emergency savings increases your overall financial well-being by a massive 21%. Just think about that for a second. $2 grand. That is less than what a lot of people drop on a flashy new laptop or a quick vacation. Yet, that relatively tiny buffer creates an unbelievable psychological shift. It pulls you right out of pure panic-driven survival mode because you finally have just a tiny bit of breathing room. And when you push that emergency fund to cover 3 to 6 months of living expenses, which for most folks lands right around that magical $20,000 mark, you get another 13% boost in financial well-being. At this point, the fear is just gone. You've officially crossed over from wealth preservation and basic survival into actual wealth building. Your brain finally has the space to stop constantly asking, how do I survive until next Friday? And instead starts asking, okay, how can I grow this money? Section 2. The math of momentum. Because once that psychological foundation is locked in, the math totally takes over. Let's break down the raw, undeniable power of compound interest here. Say you're saving $1,000 a month and getting an 8% return on your investments. Getting to that very first 20 grand takes about 19 months of hardcore discipline and delayed gratification. It's a grind, for sure. But your second 20 grand? It doesn't take another 19 months. It only takes 17 months. You did the exact same amount of work, saved the exact same amount of money, but you shaved 2 full months off the timeline because your first 20K is now working for you. Fast forward a bit. By the time you hit $400,000 invested, your portfolio is generating $20,000 every 5 months automatically. The same exact amount that took you nearly 2 years to grind out initially is just happening in the background while you sleep. Now, people always think wealthy folks have some sort of secret, exclusive hedge fund access. They really don't. The secret is literally just basic scale. Look, a 10% return on $2,000 is $200. That's nice, sure, but it's not changing your life. But a 10% return on $20,000, that's $2,000. Now we're talking about real, tangible money that actually matters. That's cash flowing into your account over a year without you having to lift a single finger. You're using the exact same index funds and brokerages as the guy starting with $1,000, but your scale transforms those small percentage wins into massive, unstoppable financial progress. So the absolutely crucial point here is this. When you save that first 20 grand from zero, you haven't just accumulated a pile of cash. You fundamentally rewired your brain. Think about it. You had to track every dollar, you had to say no to shiny objects, and you had to be remarkably consistent for months. You proved to yourself that you can control your money instead of letting it control you. This is a total identity shift. You are now the type of person who can delay gratification, which means you stop sweating the $3 coffees and the generic versus name brand cereal. Your mental energy is totally freed up to focus on the big, strategic choices that actually build lasting wealth. Section 3. Walking away money. This is where hitting the threshold completely alters your daily life. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, you are trapped. Plain and simple. You can't ask for a raise or push back on a toxic boss because you desperately need the job to survive. But 20 grand in the bank, that's what we call walking away money. You could literally quit your job tomorrow and survive for months. You aren't operating out of pure desperation anymore. You're negotiating from a position of absolute strength. Just knowing that buffer is there makes you more confident, more assertive, and way more willing to take calculated risks. And guess what? Bosses actually notice that confidence, which ironically leads to better assignments and, you guessed it, more money. Because you aren't desperate, you experience this massive opportunity shift. Before, a broken car or a dead laptop was a catastrophic, code red emergency that derailed your entire month. Now, it's just a minor Tuesday inconvenience. But even more importantly, you actually start seeing opportunities that broke people simply can't afford to notice. A friend starts a promising business, you can actually consider investing 5 grand. A killer deal on a rental property pops up, you can actually run the numbers instead of just feeling envious. This is exactly what they mean when they say money goes to money. Having cash gives you options, and options create incredible opportunities. Section 4. The opportunity cost reality. Guys, listen to me carefully right now, because this is the ultimate trap. People hit that $20,000 threshold, they feel that amazing psychological shift, and then they immediately take that 20 grand and blow it on a shiny new car because they feel they earned it. No way, don't do this. That 20 grand is not a reward for good behavior. It is the absolute foundation of your entire financial future. Look, cars are huge emotional purchases, but the literal second you drive a new car off the lot, it loses 20% of its value. Boom, gone. You are actively destroying the wealth you just worked so hard to build. The Wealth Builder's reality is making the strategic, mature choice to drive a reliable older Honda while your assets sit quietly in the background, compounding and multiplying. Now, this next number will either make you laugh or cry. $400,000. That is what the average person easily spends over a 40-year period just on cars. I'm talking payments, insurance, maintenance, gas, the whole shebang. Most people are dropping $600 to $800 a month on transportation, and then they turn around and complain they can't afford to save for retirement. It is literally like watching someone spend a fortune on a premium gym membership they never use while sitting on the couch complaining they can't afford healthy food. When you have your foundation built, you start filtering every single purchase through opportunity cost. You stop asking, hey, can I afford the monthly payment? And you start asking, what is this actually costing my future self? That $30,000 car today, it isn't just $30,000. It is $200,000 in future wealth that you are sacrificing over the next 20 years. Suddenly, driving that used car doesn't feel like a sacrifice at all, does it? It feels like a brilliant strategic move to fund your freedom, while the guy next to you in the flashy new car is secretly stressed out of his mind about money. Okay, let's bring it all together. Building this foundation requires serious intent. Step 1. You have to track every single dollar to permanently escape survival mode. Step 2. Stop wasting your precious mental bandwidth on $3 coffees. Focus on optimizing the major expenses like your housing and your car. Step 3. Stay hyper-disciplined until you cross that $20,000 threshold. And step 4. Sit back and let the math and the momentum build your wealth automatically. Getting to 20 grand won't make you filthy rich overnight, but it is an absolute game changer. It is the literal difference between merely surviving and actually thriving. So I'm going to leave you with this one question to think about. Will you stay trapped in the cycle, constantly reacting to whatever financial fire pops up next? Or will you put your head down, build your foundation, and use that $20,000 to completely design the life you want? Start building that foundation today. Trust me, your future self is begging you to make the right choice. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, guys, and I will see you in the next one.